When you bench mezuman b'shlosha, you just say Baruch Shachalnu Mishalot. When you bench basar, you say Baruch Halakenu Shachalnu Mishalot. The Gemara in Megillah, which puts everything together in the same Mishnah, that you need 10 people for Kaddish Kedusha Baruch Hu, and you need 10 people for Bichas Hazimun B'Shem. The Gemara doesn't give the explanation that it's a Davish Bigdusha when you bench Basar, when you say Lakenu. The Gemara sounds like it's a different explanation. The Gemara says, La Barachara, it's not Daracheretz, not Kuresh, Mod, Shmaya, Lahaskir, Shem Shemaim, to mention Baruch Hakenu, Bebatzim Asar. Sounds like it's not really a Davish Bigdusha. The Achrayim have a whole discussion in Hilchas Slichas, in Hilchas Rosh Hashanah, whether reciting the Yud Gimel Midas and the Slichas is considered a Davish Bigdusha or not. The Slichas can be recited B'Yechidus. A lot of the students are traveling back home on Erev Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur time, Asarah made tshuva, and they have to say Slichas on the airplane, not traveling to Eretz Yisrael. So they say the Slichas B'Yechidus, but the Yud Gimel Midas, that's the big machlokes. In the 1500s, they wrote about this, 1600s, 1500s, they wrote about this. And then Tshuva's going in Basroi, they write, what are the three nafkaminas lahalacha, whether reciting Yud Gimel Midas constitutes in the Slichas, whether it constitutes a Davish Bigdusha. So the three nafkaminas are whether you need a minyan, can you say it B'Yechidus? Number two, whether you need Amida. Ashkenazim usually assume like that a Davish Bigdusha, you have to stand. And supposedly it's a passage in the Yerushalmi that that based on a pasuk in Sefer Shoftim, Egla Melech Me'av stood up when the shofet came to him. I forgot already which shofet, and he said, "V'alakim li el HaMelech," so he stood up. And the third nafkamin is whether you need atifa, whether you have to put the talis over your head or not. If it's a davish bigdusha, then they say you need atifa. So the Yekish minig is when you bench ba'asara, they said, Baruch Halakenu Shachan Mishla, everybody stands up, mamish. Rab Soloveitchik said, then Lithuania, they never stood up. They didn't even try to shake a little bit to demonstrate as if they're starting to stand up when you bench Mizum and Basara, because they held that it's not a Davish Bigdusha. The Gemara gave a different reason why you need Asarah, La Barachara, but not because Davish Bigdusha. The Rambam quotes the din in the Gemara that three women can bench Mizuman together. Then he holds that it's on Tesa, holds only Rishus, it's not a Chayva. Others disagree, hold that it's Mamash a Chayva. So the Rambam writes, three women can bench Mizuman, that's okay, but if you have 10 women, they cannot add a Lakenu. So why not? So the Kes Mishnah writes, simple, because it's a Davish Bigdusha. So others disagree. Rabbi Soloveitchik said you can explain the Rambam differently, that it's not based on Davish Bigdusha. What is it based on? If it's not a Davish Bigdusha, why shouldn't 10 women be able to say Baruch Halakenu? So perhaps it's based on the idea, there's a Rashba on the first half of Maseches Nida, where the Rashba quotes an opinion, he doesn't agree with it, but he quotes an opinion that the din is that Safik Tumah B'Shus HaYachad Sveika Tamei, Safik Tumah B'Shus HaRabim Sveika Tahar. So what's the definition of B'Shus HaRabim? So there's one Gemara that says Rishus Harabim, the Gemara in Baba Basra, Rishus Harabim for Safik Tumah purposes is defined like Rishus Harabim for Shabbos. But then there's another Gemara, you have to figure out how the two Gemaras fit in together. There's another Gemara in Nazir, the beginning of Perek Shnei Nazirim, that if you have three people standing together, even in the Beis HaMikdash, even if you're inside a building, if you have three people standing together, that's already considered a Rishus Harabim. 3 people is already a crowd, because it's based on the dinim of Saita. So Saita, you have the man and the woman. So that's a suffix tameh b'shus hayachad sveika tameh, and it says there v'nitma. So the word v'nitma is used by the Chumash to imply this din, that if you would only have 2 people, it'd be a suffix tameh b'shus hayachad sveika tameh. But if you would have had 3 people, it wouldn't have been stira. Stira is only if the boiler with the Isha with the boiler there. But if there's a third person, then it's already, there's no Yichud, there's no Stira. So then it would be considered a Rishus Harabim. So the Rashba quotes an opinion on the first daf in Nida that maybe if you have 3 women, it's not considered a Rishus Harabim. That women are supposed to lead a private life, who are more makpid on tznius by women than on men. To lead tznius means to do things b'tzin as opposed to b'farhesia. Part of tznius is to dress properly for men and for women, not just for women. but we're more makbid on tznius for women than for men. So maybe that's the reason why, even if you have 3 women, it's not considered a rabbim. It's not considered a rishus rabbim. Even if you have 10 women, it's not considered a rabbim to be able to say Baruch Elokeinu. Anyway, so you have so far 2 dinim. There's 1 din for davar shebikdusha, you need Asarah. Davar shebikdusha, you need Asarah is based on the pasuk Gnedashti in Parshas Kedoshim. Or Achrimos Kedoshim, Nigdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. So the Gemara shows that the first Mishnah in Sanhedrin shows that the word toch has the connotation of Eidah, and the word Eidah has the connotation of Asarah. So really, a davar shebikdusha should need all of Klal Yisrael, Nigdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. So the 10 people represent all of Klal Yisrael. That's the word, the davar shebikdusha. When you're benching Basarah, it's a different din. You have to have a big crowd. Derech Eretz v'Dushem Hashem, you have to have a big crowd. Then there's another din, Birchas Nisuin. You have to have Asarah. Birchas Nisuin, that's Ma'akeh b'di'evet. When you say Birchas Eresin under the chuppah, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, Lachatchili you should have Asarah. But if it's a minig. But if you can't get Asarah, so then you can say Birchas Eresin, you just have to have 2 Eidei Kiddushin, Eidus L'Kiyum Adover. But Birchas Nisuin, the 6 brachas that you say with the Ber Piagofen that we call Sheva brachas, 6 brachas that you say under the chuppah, so that requires Asarah. That's based on the pasuk. Is that a davar shebikdusha? That's a question. But you need Asarah. If you don't have Asarah, you can't say the Birchas Nisuin. So we spoke the other day. Does that mean you can't do the Nisuin? Or do you say so they're not allowed to live together? They only had Erison. Or do you say no? You do the Nisuin. You don't need Asarah for the Nisuin. Kala b'lei bracha is not to be taken literally. It means Kala b'lo Nisuin. Asarah l'bayla kenida. But if you have the Nisuin, b'li Asarah, so you don't say Birchas Nisuin, and the couple are permitted to live together. Then the Gemara says to recite Birchas HaGoimel, you have to have Asarah. Also based on a pasuk. Is this Ma'akeh b'di'evet? So the Shulchan Aruch quotes a Machlokes HaRishonim, and that's Siman about Birchas HaGoimel. So there are 2 opinions whether Asarah is Ma'akeh b'di'evet. Does that mean to say, so when we're machmer, that Asarah is Ma'akeh b'di'evet, you should always make sure you have Asarah. These days, let's say a person was almost in an automobile crash and he wants to say Birchas HaGoimel, and we don't have Asarah now. So what can he do? So is the Asarah Ma'akeh? So maybe he should wait till he was in an automobile crash before Purim. Is it okay to wait so long? So the Mishnah Berurah quotes there, you really shouldn't wait longer than 30 days. You should really say as soon as possible, after you were Nitzal, after you had your Yeshua. But if you delay a little bit, is also okay. But the Mishnah Berurah quotes there, has a commentary on the Rif on Brachas, which the Mishnah Berurah quotes very often. So he says that it's not really right to wait more than 30 days. But now in the middle of the 30 days are almost up, holding by the 25th day. And there's still no let up, and we're not going to have minyanim. So what can he do for the Birchas HaGoimel? So the Pashtus is that if you hold Asarah as Ma'akeh and you say Birchas HaGoimel without a minyan, it sounds like it's a bracha levatala. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes Rabbi Kiva Eger on the bottom of the page in Hilchos in Orach Chaim. Hilchos Birchas HaGoimel says you can't say like that. Can't say that it's a bracha levatala, because the Gemara in the last parak in Brachas tells a story. There was a Talmid Chacham who was seriously sick, and he recovered, and the Talmidim came to visit him after he already recovered and to wish him well. So one of them said a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shegemalcha kol tuv. Blessed be the Rebbeinu Shalom that he brought you back to your good health. So, and the Gemara, we assume it's not considered a bracha levatala. The Chachamim whenever misakin that other people who are happy, if someone is very happy over the fact that his child or his grandchild or his Rebbe or a close friend of his recovered from a sickness, so there's no obligation to recite Birchas HaGoimel. But you see from the Gemara that it's a reshus. So Rabbi Kivega says, if it's a reshus, so it should be a reshus for the chayla who recovered also. And it doesn't say that the other person needs Asarah. According to some Rishonim, the presence of Asarah is Ma'akev. The presence of 10 people is Ma'akev in being Yotze the mitzvah Birchas HaGoimel. You're not Yotze the Takanos Chachamim to say it's not a din deraisa. They're not yet to the Takanas Chachamim to say Birchas HaGaimel. But obviously it's a rishus. If it's a rishus for another person to say, so it should be a rishus for the person, for the chayil himself, to say the bracha. So the Pashta says that under these circumstances that it doesn't look like we're going to have a minyan within 30 days. The person was in an accident 3 weeks ago. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to have a minyan to 10 people to recite the Birchas HaGaimel. So then he should say Bechidus. Maybe it would be a good idea. What's the idea of reciting Birchas HaGaimel Basar? Why it's a Davish B'Kedusha? Pashtus is it's not a Davish B'Kedusha. See, the Gemara in Psachim has a whole discussion of the pasuk in Chumash in Parshas Boy, when the Torah tells us all the details of eating Korban Pesach. It says, So the pasuk says you're not allowed to take the B'sar HaPesach out of the house. So the Gemara says, let's say if you have a wide doorway, doorways are usually not that wide. If you have a wide doorpost and a wide doorway, a thick doorway, so then the Gemara says when you would close the door from that point and in, from the inside of the door and in, that's considered inside the house. And that part of the entrance to the doorway that's before the door, that's outside. So if a person took the B'sar HaPesach into the doorway, but that part of the outer part of the doorway, past the point where if you would close the door, that would be on the outside. So then he already violated the din of taking the Korban Pesach outside of the bayis. So the Gemara says, just like the din is by Korban Pesach min egev hilifnim versus min egev hilachutz, similarly, it's a din, can you be mitzarf the person to a minyan? So the Gemara says, if he's min egev hilifnim, if he's in that part, it's a wide doorway. I don't mean wide this way, horizontal. I mean wide the other direction, wide going in from the outside to the inside. If it's a wide doorway and the person is standing in that part of the doorway, that if you were to close the door, that would be on the inside. That is mitzaref to the minyan. But if he's standing in that part of the entrance to the doorway, that when you would close the door, that would be on the outside. So then he's not mitzaref to the minyan. So the simple reading of the Gemara is that you cannot be mitzaref a person to the minyan if he's in a different room. Same thing in shul. Let's say you have a mechitza between the men's section and the women's section. And and some men who come late are embarrassed to come into the shul, so they daven in the women's section. So if the mechitza is not attached to the ground, it's portable, so then it doesn't really Mishnah Berurah says it doesn't really separate the room into two rooms. So then you can be mitzaref 5 people on the side of the mechitza, 5 people on the other side of the mechitza. But if the mechitza is attached to the room, then it separates the women's section. It's a different room. So if you have 9 people in the men's section, 9 people in the women's section, you don't have a minyan. So you can't say Kaddish Kedusha Baruch Hu. Or let's say you have a minyan, the minyan starts, but the people that come very late are embarrassed, so they stay in the women's section. So you have 20 people in the men's section and 9 men davening in the women's section. In the middle of the week, the women don't come.
Yeah.
So you have 9 men who came late to the minyan davening in the women's section, and one of the men wants to say Kaddish. So you can't say Kaddish unless you have a minyan. So in the room where if the mechitza is attached to the floor, he doesn't have a minyan in his room. I the Gemara quotes Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who makes his statement, "Afilu mechitza shel barzel, enem apsekes ben Yisrael aviyem shebashamayim." Even if you have an iron curtain is in the mechitza shel barzel. It's an expression that appears in Navi Yecheskel. We talk about the iron curtain separating between Russia and the rest of the world. We used to talk about the iron curtain, but it's a lashon in Yecheskel. So Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, "Afilu mechitza shel barzel, enem apsekes ben Yisrael aviyem shebashamayim." So how does this correspond to this Gemara that if you have 9 people in one room, 9 people in another room, they're not mitzarfim to a minyan? So Taisa says, no, they're 2 different issues. To be mitzarf to a minyan, you have to have 10 people in the same room. And this is the difficult. If there's a minyan, 10 people, this fellow is in the women's section, which is a different room. He's outside. He didn't enter the shul yet. He came late, and then the shul, they're already saying Kedusha, Kaddish Baruch Hu. Is he allowed to answer on the outside? Where he is, there's no minyan. So that's what Rabbi Shua Malevi says. Provided there are 10 people in the same room, there are 10 people in the minyan, you can answer Kaddish, Kedusha, and Baruch Hu, even though you're not part of that minyan. You're on the outside. But if you want to say Kaddish, you have to be part of the minyan. You have to have the minyan of 10 people in the room where you are. So the question is, what about, that's for a minyan for Davish B'Kedusha. You have to have 10 people in the same room. What about a minyan for Birchas HaMazon? What if you have 5 people in one room, 5 people in another room? Let's say a restaurant, 5 people, 2 different rooms, and there's one waiter who's serving on both rooms, or there's the wall that separates between the 2 rooms. The wall is attached to the ground, let's say. The wall is attached, but someone from the one group, there are 9 people here, 9 people there. You don't have 10 people together, or let's say you don't have 3 people together. But some of the people here see some of the people there. So that's enough to be mitzdaref to zimun. That's what it says that's what it says in the Mishnah and Brachas. You have 9 people in one room, 9 people in another room. Yachad to bench mezuman. So the Rashba has hundreds of tshuvas. So the Beis Yosef quotes a tshuvas Rashba where he writes ulai. Perhaps just like they mitzdarfim to bench mezuman, perhaps the same din is true that they mitzdarfim to constitute a minyan to say a davish b'kedusha. If the 9 people in a Beis Ovel, you have that a lot of times. The Beis Ovel, you have, let's say, 18 people came to daven and make a minyan for the Ovel, instead of having all the people crowded in one room. So you have 9 people in one room, 9 people in the other room, and there's a big opening between one room and the other. So they see each other. So the Rashba and the Tshuva writes, ulai, perhaps they mitzvah from to constitute a minyan for the purposes of Davish B'Kedusha, just like they mitzvah from to bench mezuman. The original din is by bench and mezuman. That's a Mishnah, and the Rashba says maybe. So the Mishnah Berurah says it's not really right. The Rashba himself was misupik, and then he hold that it's not correct. Maybe for Davish B'Kedusha, you have to have all the 10 people together in the same room. That then is only by bench and mezuman, because the bench mezuman Baruch Elokeinu is not really Davish B'Kedusha. The Gemara doesn't seem to assume that it's Davish B'Kedusha. The Gemara gave a different explanation. Why need Asarah? Gemara said because La Barachara Lat Kuri Shma Dishmai Bebatzah Me Asarah. So that's a question. What's the story with the 10 people that you need by Birchas HaGaimel? Birchas HaGaimel is probably not a Davish B'Kedusha. It's a problem. What's the definition of Davish B'Kedusha? We're not sure. So Soloveitchik worked on it a lot in his Yartzeit Drushes and his Shiurim. He thought maybe the definition is a Shevach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is neither in the form of a pasuk nor in the form of a bracha. Whenever something is in the form of a bracha, so we assume that's not a Davish B'Kedusha. Kaddish Kedusha Baruch Hu, that's not a pasuk and it's not a bracha. Kedusha is psukim that you're reciting psukim from Yecheskel. Then the answer, but we don't say the whole pasuk. We don't say V'kol Zel Yamar. We say just say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. We're saying it b'Torah Shivas HaMalachim. We're not saying it b'Torah pasuk. If b'Torah pasuk, you have to say Kol Psuka de la Paskim. You have to say the whole pasuk from the beginning to the end. So the pashtus is that Birchas HaGaimel is not really a din that you need Asarah because of Davish B'Kedusha. It's to have Pirsumi Nisa. The person feels that he had a Nes, he had a Yeshua, so he should praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu barabim. So the similar to the din of Mikra Megillah B'Asarah. The Gemara has a machlokes Rav and Rav Asi. Rav Asi was a student of Rav in the beginning of Maseches Megillah. So in the days of the Bayesheni, there was a practice. The story of Purim occurred before the Bayesheni was completed. That's how the Gemara, all the Gemaras imply like that. The history books keep on, every 50 years, they go back and forth, whether it's true or not, whether the story of Purim occurred in the middle of Bayesheni or before the Bayesheni was built. But the Gemara goes consistently that the story of Purim occurred, the miracle of Purim occurred before the completion of the Binyan and the Bayesheni. So during the period of Bayesheni, before the Churban Bayesheni, when they would celebrate Purim, there was a leniency, there was a kula that the Bnei HaKvarim, those who lived in tiny villages, Magdimim Liyom HaKnisa, we permitted them to read the Megillah the Monday or the Thursday prior to Purim, if Purim didn't fall out on a Monday and Thursday. So the first Mishnah Megillah says they had a heter, they had a kula, that they were allowed to read the Megillah. If they want to read the Megillah on Purim, is very good. But we gave them a leniency that they can be Yotze in the Mikra Megillah if they read on the Yom HaKnisa, on Sheni B'Chamishi before. So the Gemara says, but if they're reading on Sheni B'Chamishi, but the Sudas Purim, they have to have on Purim, Shalach Manas, Matanas Lavyanim, all the other mitzvahs have to be fulfilled on Purim. The only leniency we give them is that they can be Yotze in Mikra Megillah before Purim. So the Gemara says, when they read the Megillah before Purim, Shaloi Bizmanai, Kriyas HaMegillah, Shaloi Bizmanai, have to have Asarah. If you don't have a minyan, you can't do it. What about Kriyas HaMegillah Bizmanai? The Gemara says, after the Churban Bayesheni, they discontinued that heter because the Jews are dispersed all over, and it's just going to cause confusion to have the people who live in the little villages, Yotze Mikra Megillah, the Monday or Thursday before Purim. They're going to think a month later is Pesach, and they'll start observing Pesach on the wrong day. Bisman Abayis, there was a Jewish yishuv in Eretz Yisrael, and the Rabbanim would be mefarsim what the din is. And after the Churban Abayis, they were afraid it would wreak havoc if we would follow that heter. So they discontinued that heter. So what about Mikra Megillah on Purim? Do you have to have a minyan? So that was a machlokes. So Rab said it's not necessary. You only need a minyan when you read the Megillah Shaloi Bizmanoi and Sheni B'Chamishi for the Yom HaKnisa, for the Bnei HaKfarim. And the student of Rab disagreed. He said even Mikra Megillah Bizmanoi also, it's a question whether they meant it L'chatchila as a mitzvah b'shleimus, they meant it even Mediyabit. So that's a dispute on the Rishonim how to read Rav Asi. So Rav was the Rebbe and Rav Asi was a student of his. So the Gemara says Rav disagreed with Rav Asi, but out of respect for his student's opinion, he was machmer like his student. When you have Talmidei Chacham who disagree with each other in halacha, each one says the other one is wrong, but they're respectful of each other. We have a lot of things that the Bahag said that Taisus doesn't agree at all, but we're very respectful. If you miss the day in Sfira, so you don't say as Baracha, and the rest of the Sfira, we don't allow women to read the Megillah, to be Moitzi men. We have a lot of things from the Bahag that we really don't hold like the Bahag, because we think it's all against the Gemara, but Lachatchila, we're out of respect for the Bahag, we don't violate his opinion. If you really get stuck and the only one to read the Megillah, if you don't know how to read the Megillah, the only one who knows how to read it is a woman, so we'd say the woman can read the Megillah to be Moitzi the man, okay? And Mikra Din, we really paskin. If you miss the day in Sfira, you do say bracha, you do continue to count. But out of respect for the Bahag, we don't violate his opinion. So, so the Gemara says Rav was machman, and Shulchan Aruch says we should try to see to it that we should always have minyan when you read the Megillah. Why? It's a davar shebikdusha. No, it's not a davar shebikdusha. The whole idea of reading the Megillah is Pesum in Isa. Kadosh Baruch Hu did a nes for the Jewish people, nes Purim. It was a nes nistar. So you want to say, you want to have Pirsam Anes, so we do it by Asarah. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes a Pri Megadim who wants to distinguish between the need for Asarah for Mikra Megillah and the need for Asarah for a minyan, for Davar Shebikdusha. By a minyan, you need that all attention be Tziruf Yachad. So we have a din in Shulchan Aruch, if a person was put in Cherem, a Nidui, you cannot be Mitzaref him to the minyan. Nidui means you have to stay away from him. We want to isolate him from the community. We want to excommunicate him. He shouldn't be part of the community. So you cannot be mitzaref him to the minyan. But from Mikra Megillah, he is Jewish. So from Mikra Megillah, you need Asarah. So the Pri Megadim says, Mishnah Berurah quotes this Pri Megadim. He says, but Asarah by the Mikra Megillah is not because you need a tziruf. You don't need a tziruf. Even if you have 9 people and the 10th person is Benida, but he's Jewish, so you're accomplishing Pesumi Nisa. So it could well be Al Pi Pashtus. The same would be true, let's say, by Mikra Megillah. If you have 5 people in one room, 5 people in another room, and not mitzvah from Yachad to constitute a minyan for Davar Shebikdusha, but it could well be that for the purposes of Mikra Megillah Basar, that's fine. You're accomplishing Pesumi Nisa like that. So it could well be that for Birchas HaGaimel, probably also the same. The need for Asarah by Birchas HaGaimel is probably also the same as the Asarah for Mikra Megillah. That we say L'chatchila should always have Mikra Megillah Ba'asarah. They have the Pesumi Nisa Ba'asarah. So let's say I'll say Birchas HaGaimel by Zoom, and 10 people are listening in. I speak to all the 10 people. 10 people are listening in when I say. So according to Rabbi Kiva Eiger, even according to the opinion that the Asarah is Ma'akev, you're not Yotzei the Birchas HaGaimel if you say B'li Asarah, but it wouldn't be a bracha l'matola. The Mishnah Berurah quotes that. The Mechaber sounds like not so, Sounds like according to that opinion, if you say Birchas Hagaimel, the Pachas Nasara would be a bracha levatala, but the Mishnah Berurah quotes Rabbi Kivega. It really doesn't make sense. If another person is so thrilled about my recovery, is permitted to recite the Birchas Hagaimel over my recovery because he's so happy about it, so certainly I can say Birchas Hagaimel without Asarah. Maybe I won't be Yaitse, okay, but under the circumstances, it's the best he can do under the condition. I don't want to wait more than 30 days because the Mishnah Berurah quoted the Ra. It's too late. If you wait till more than 30 days, you can't say the Birchas Hagaimel. So I want to say Birchas Hagaimel. So the whole idea, you don't need 10 people for a Davish Bigdusha that all the 10 should be in the same place. You want to do Pirsumi Nisa, that 10 people, another 10 people should hear when you're saying it. So just like the Prima Godim suggested, that one who's a Nidui can count as one of the 10 for Mikra Megillah, probably the same. One is a Nidui can count for one of the 10 people for Birchas Hagaimel also. It's also Pisumi Nisa. And probably as long as all of the 10 people hear about it while I'm saying it now. I'm speaking on Zoom and everybody hears it. And so there could be that would be sufficient for Zoom. For Davish Bigdusha, it wouldn't be sufficient. For Mikra Megillah, would it be good for Mikra Megillah? Would it be considered Mikra Megillah Basara? That's a question. Mikra Megillah Basara means all the 10 people are Yotze with one Balkaire. What if you have 10 people in the same room? Each one is reading his own Megillah. They're not paying attention to each other. Is that considered Mikra Megillah Basara? So that was a famous dispute between the Chazon Ish and Rav Elvel Soloveitchik. There's a Rambam where the Gemara says that usually we have a rule, Trei Kol Elo Mishtami. If you have two people saying Kiddush simultaneously, and usually they're not going to be exactly two people at a different speed. In the sukkah, everybody eats in the community sukkah, in the shul sukkah, and everybody's saying Kiddush at the same time. So the one who says the Kiddush is Yotze, even if he doesn't hear. But the listeners are only Yotze if they're Shomeya. So the question is, can you hear? We usually have a rule, Trei Kol Elo Mishtami. Two people are talking at the same time, you can't really hear well. So the Gemara says there's an exception to the rule by Mikra Megillah, because it only comes once a year. I did the Chaviva, since it's a mitzvah Chaviva, it's once a year. So he will pay attention, he will be able to hear the words. So the Rambam gives the mashal, if you have even 10 people saying Mikra Megillah, why does he say 10? So it sounds like he means that if you have 10 people reading the Megillah together at the same time, at different speeds, that's called Mikra Megillah Basara. So if you hold that that's Mikra Megillah Basara, because everybody knows 10 people they're not being Yotze with the same Balkar, each one is reading on his own. So then if, let's say you have 10 people will be reading the Megillah by Zoom, and all the other 9 people will know that I'm reading the Megillah. It could be that would also be good enough. It's not really a Davish Bigdusha that you need all the 10 people to be in the same room. If you hold the other way, that it's only called Mikra Megillah Basara if all the 10 are Yotze with the same Balkare, so that's a question whether he really says Shamer Ka'ina. Does Shamer Ka'ina apply if I'm speaking over the telephone or I'm speaking over a loudspeaker? So the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says that when the Baal Tekeh blows the shofar, if you hear, and then there's an echo, he blows in a cave, these things come up halacha l'maisa. In the Milchemet Yom Kippurim, all these shilas came up halacha l'maisa. A lot of the soldiers, if the soldiers were in the cave, out of the cave, every din in the Shulchan Aruch comes up halacha l'maisa. So the Mishnah says, if you hear the kol hashofar, you're yotze. If you hear kol havara, if you hear the echo, you're not yotze. So Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Soloveitchik both raised the sofek. What does it mean? You heard the echo, you're not yotze. Is it because you're only yotze shemer kaina if you heard the original kol? But if it's the echo, then it's not the original kol, so you're not yotze. So if you hear by a loudspeaker or you hear by the telephone, it's clearly not the original call. I'm speaking over here and somebody down the block hears me. He's not hearing my voice. My sound waves are converted into electrical waves, and the electrical waves, when they reach the other end of the telephone, are converted back into sound waves. So he's hearing, it's less than an echo. It's totally less than an echo. But maybe the pshat is, maybe the difference between kol shof and kol avara is not so much whether it's the original kol or not. Maybe it means kol avar means it's garbled and it's hazy. It's not clear. But if it's clear, even if it's not the original sound wave, maybe it's also good. Maybe it's also called shameya kainen. So Rab Soloveitchik and Rav Moshe Feinstein both had the same suffix. So Rav Moshe, so what's halacha l'maisa? Can you be yotze with a loudspeaker? Mikra Megillah. So Rav Moshe Feinstein writes in the original tshuva, maybe in a later tshuva, he recommends, in the original tshuva also, he recommends you shouldn't rely on it. But he says, look, Mikra Megillah is only a din with the Rabbanon. And a suffix the Rabbanon lakula, strictly speaking, if you're not sure, so if they're reading the Megillah over a loudspeaker and it's going to cause a whole friction in the community, if you're going to make a whole rumpus to insist that the rabbi is making a mistake and you shouldn't permit them to read the Megillah over the loudspeaker, so you leave it the way it is and you let everybody be yotze like that. Because maybe you are yotze. Maybe it's fake, maybe you are yotze. So that you got the same suffix. He didn't say halacha l'maisa, therefore you can leave it the way it is. And Rab Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes that he heard from the Chazon Ish also there's such a possibility that maybe one can be yotze Mikra Megillah on a loudspeaker. Rab Shlomo Zalman says, how can that be? The Lubavitcher Rebbe also they have a 4-volume collection of letters like Shagos and Chuvas from the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the Seder of the Dalet Chalkei Shulchan Aruch. So he writes, he thinks that those who think that you can be yotze in the Megillah over a telephone, over the loudspeaker, he doesn't think they understand how the whole thing works. If they would understand the physics involved, they would never say such a thing. It's not at all the sound of the person. It's converted into electrical waves and it's converted back into sound waves. That's what Shlomo Zalman Tain, the same as the Lubavitcher Rebbe. They say it's not shaykh. They don't like it at all. So if the din of Mikra Megillah, if the din of Mikra Megillah Asarah means that you have to, all 10 have to be yotze with one person's reading of the Megillah, so then over here, it's very questionable whether it can be yotze if you listen over Zoom. You really should avoid that. But if it just means that you're reading the Megillah Pisum Nisa, so then if you have 10 different people reading the Megillah in 10 different locations, let's say when everybody was quarantined on Purim, a lot of people were sick at that time, they were quarantined. So if you have each person is reading the Megillah on his own, and there are 10 people, and they all are aware of each other, they all see each other over the Zoom, and they're aware that each one is reading the Megillah, it would even be in fulfillment of the Hida mitzvah of Mikra Megillah B'Asab. That's not that serious, because we paskin Mikra Megillah B'Yechidus is also good. We do it a lot of times. We read the Megillah in the hospital, we read the Megillah for the older people at home who couldn't go to shul. So the whole requirement for Mikra Megillah B'Asab is only Lachatchila. It's not that serious. Mikra Megillah, the Mechaber had, the Ramah quotes, the Tur quotes a Machlokes Harishonim, whether if you have 10 women, is that considered Mikra Megillah B'Asarah? If you have 5 men and 5 women, they mitzvah from Yachad. So the pashtus is that if it's a din and you need Pisumei Nisa, so you have 10 people, 10 Jewish people is Pisumei Nisa. So even if some of them are women. But if the din that you need 10 is not for Pisumei Nisa, that you need like a Davish Bigdusha, then you have to have Dafke 10 men, and 10 women wouldn't be good. But the Pashtus is like the Pri Megadim said, that it's not the same as a Davish Bigdusha. Davish Bigdusha, the person who's in Cherem and Nidui cannot be Mitzdaref, because Asarah, they have to be Mitzdaref from Yachad. But here it's not a Davish Bigdusha, just for the sake of Pisumei Nisa. So even if you're Machman by the women, maybe it's a different reason. Maybe it's not called the tzibur because of the inyan of tznius. But the 10 people probably will not have to necessarily be in the same room. If you have 9 people in one room, 5 people in one room, 5 people in the other room, for Mikra Megillah purposes, it probably would be fine. The pashtus is you don't need that all the 10 have to be in the same room. Someone just told me the other day that they had a chuppah he lives in New Jersey, so they had a chuppah in the backyard, and they had 10 people there. And the Chassan's Rebbe from Eretz Yisrael said the Birchas Erison over the telephone. I thought that was highly improper, because l'chatchila for sure, there were 10 Jews over here. What do you need, the Rebbe from Eretz Yisrael to say the Birchas Erison? The reading of the Ksuba, the Rebbe, he should have done a meifus like that. Let's see the Rebbe read the Ksuba from Eretz Yisrael. That doesn't matter. The reading of the Ksuba is just to waste time. We learned the other day that in the days of the Tanakh, till the days of the Gaonim, the Erison would take place not in Isuin, the Chuppah would take place a year later. up until a year and a Wednesday later, a year and a mitzvah later. So, and then the Goyim moved up to Nisuin. You should have back-to-back Nisuin following Erison. So Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam introduced, Rabbeinu Tam is Rashi's grandson, so they introduced he should have some kind of a hapsaka between the Erison and the Nisuin, a zecher to the fact that in the days of the Gemara, in the days of the Tanakh, there was a long pause in between. So they instituted that you should read the ksuba in between. Or we mentioned if the rabbi wants to hold a sermon, so the best time to hold the sermon, a drasha under the chuppah, is either right before or right after Kriyas HaKsuba, because the whole role of the Kriyas HaKsuba is just to make a hafsokah. Some of the Rabbanim, when they read the Ksuba, rush through it, they read it very quickly. That's not right. They should read it slowly. The whole purpose of the Kriyas HaKsuba is to waste time. I remember when Blazer Silver used to be the chief rabbi in the United States and Canada too, used to be the president of the Agudas Rabbanim. So when he would read the Ksuba at a wedding, he would read it very slowly. And if someone would talk, he would stop. If he heard someone in the audience talking, he would stop and start all over again, because the whole purpose of the Kriyas HaKsuba is to waste time. So he would read it slowly. That's the whole purpose, to read it slowly. It is interesting. Seems to be a contradiction in the Mishnah Berurah between what he writes in Chelik Aleph and what he writes in Chelik Beis. Every so often there are contradictions in the Mishnah Berurah. The son of the Chafetz Chaim writes in his biography that he wrote of his father, that's included in the 3-volume set of Kol Kisvei HaChafetz Chaim. So he writes that the project of working on the Mishnah Berurah was a whole family project. Different members of the family wrote different sections, and his father, the Chafetz Chaim, was the overall editor. So he said that explains why there's sometimes contradiction. He says, I wrote that section, and my uncle wrote the other section, and I thought the halacha should be like this, and my uncle thought it should be like that. In fact, Lubavitch requested for years of the Russian government that they should get back all of the library that the communists confiscated from Lubavitch in Europe. So after many years of negotiation, they got it all back. They got all of Lubavitch's farm back. Plus, they gave them more than they asked for. So they got back the original manuscript of the Mishnah Berurah that was given to the printer when he printed it. So the people they have it in 770. So one of the people who saw it told me that they're written in different handwritings. It's clearly written by different people, written different handwritings and different color ink. And they know the Chafetz Chaim's handwriting, so they can tell every so often the Chafetz Chaim added on another line or two at the end of a Bir Halacha or something. He would add on something. So here there seems to be clearly a contradiction between Chelik Aleph, Mishnah Berurah, Chelik Beis. Chelik Aleph, Mishnah Berurah is really the old way of learning. Used to be you have the Be'er Heitev, quotes all the classical poskim, then you have the Shari Tshuva. So the Chelik Aleph, Mishnah Berurah doesn't have so much Bir Halacha, and he doesn't usually argue with the Shulchan Aruch. He writes over what the classical poskim say. So in Chelik Aleph Mishnah Berurah, he quotes this machlokes that the Rashba said, maybe just like Ben Shemezuman, you have 5 people in one room, 5 people in the other room. They would start from Yachad, if Mitzvahim Roim Elu Eselu. So maybe the same is good for davening, and the other poskim disagree. So he quotes the Lashon from the Shari Tshuva, which I think is from the Chidah, from the Birkei Yosef from the 1700s. Chidah says if it's going to be also, people were quarantined. People came, I think, to Venice. People came from other countries to Venice, and they carried with them different diseases, and a lot of people died because there was some kind of an epidemic in the 1700s. So they had them quarantined in different locations. So some of them came from one country, some came from another country, so they couldn't even mix the two together because they could give each other the disease. They were concerned, each one may have a different disease. So they didn't have 10 people together, but they could talk to each other. There was a hafsak in between, they could talk to each other. So the Birkei Yosef says, they're going to be quarantined for a couple of weeks, so they miss Kaddish Kedusha Baruch Hu for a couple of weeks. That's terrible. So we should rely on the Rashba. So Shas Hatchak, you can rely on the Rashba that you can be mitzaref 9 people from here, 9 people from there. Fine. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes that from the Birkei Yosef, from the Chidah, and Chelik Aleph. You look at Chelik Beis of the Mishnah Berurah, the rest of the Mishnah Berurah has long bir halachas where he reverses the psak hamakubal on the Shulchan Aruch, came out on every single page. There was always a traditional psak based on the Magen Avraham, the Machzah Shekel, the Pri Megadim. He always worked out the din. He navigated the din. Then the Mishnah Berurah comes with new Kisvei Yad that they printed in his lifetime, new Rishonim that we never heard of before. He quotes all the Me'iris and the Tosas Rids and the Maram Chalaves and all the Bahags, no addition of Bahag. And he reverses the Psak HaMekubal for centuries because of the new Svarim that were printed. That's what the Chazon Ish is not so thrilled about that. Why did he reverse the Psak HaMekubal? We had a tradition what the din was, so you leave it the way it is. Just because you discover now that there were many Rishonim, but that wasn't the tradition. So if you look at Chelik Beis Mishnah Berurah and Mekuf Tzadikei, that's by Ben Mezuman, he disagrees with the whole din by Ben Mezuman. Forget about by Minyan to say Kaddish Kedusha Baruch Hu. He paskins against that simple reading of the Mishnah. If you have 5 people in one room, 5 people in the other room, and they have the same weight of serving on both of them, or you have Miktzasim, Royim, Elo, Eselo, some of them see the others, he says, we don't paskin like that. It's only if you have 10 people in one room and 10 people in the other room. So you have a minyan there. So they can say Elokeinu. So that's what the Mishnah means, that they can be mitzvah from Yachad. What's the Chiddush? What's the Chiddush mitzvah from Yachad? Here they have 10 people, there they have 10 people. The Chiddush is like this, because in the days of the Tanoim, and until the days of, till before the days of the Shulchan Aruch, the practice was when you bench Mezuman, only one person said the whole Birchas HaMazon, the Mizamein, and the others just said Amen. So they're all Yotze with the benching of the other person. So we allow Shamei Kohenah by Kiddush, by Havdalah, one person says Kiddush, and everybody else is Yotze. One person blows shofar, and everybody's Yotze. One person reads the Megillah, and everybody's Yotze. That's based on Shamei Kohenah. But we don't, the Yerushalmi, the Ran in the end of Rosh Hashanah quotes the Talmud Yerushalmi, and it's based on Mishnayos and Gemara, same in the Bavli, that there are 3 areas of halacha where we don't permit Shamei Kohenah. One is by Kriya Shema, where you need Kabbalah Samachos Shamayim. It's not derech eretz. I should rely on someone else. He's going to say Shema Yisrael. I'll just sit there and be maskim. I'll shake my head. Kabbalah Samachos Shamayim, you should say on your own. Then with respect to tefillah, you need a shidduch, you need a parnasa, you want to be blessed with children, you need a shidduch for your children, whatever, you need something. Someone is sick, you need a refuah. So you should ask, why should you just let someone else say, and you'll say amen. You should say on your own. You should say the tefillah on your own. So it's not derech eretz. So we say we don't allow Shemei Kohenah by tefillah. And the third one is with respect to eating food. I didn't ask the other person to eat an extra sandwich for me. I ate the sandwich myself. So just like I ate it myself, so the bracha before and after, I should recite on my own. You shouldn't rely on Shemei Kohenah, not with respect to the bracha before eating food, nor with respect to the bracha after you finish eating the food. But we do it all the time. One person says, I'm Yotze, and all the other people are Yotze. Isn't that based on Shemei Kohenah? So it says in Shulchan Aruch, no, it's not based on Shemei Kohenah. If you have a group of people eating together, kach tiknu chachamim, the whole chabura is only obligated to offer one hamoitzi. And the same is true if you bench mezuman. If you have a whole group of people eating together, the shlosha shachlu ka'achas, it's not that the others are, one is says Birchas HaMazon, the others are Yotze with Shemei Kohenah. It's not based on Shemei Kohenah. Shemei Kohenah would be considered as if all 10 said the Birchas HaMazon. Shemei Kohenah, whoever pays attention, is considered as if he said Amen. Whoever says Amen is considered as if he so it's not Shemei Kohenah. It's considered as if the whole group, the whole Chabura, offered one Birchas HaMazon. It's not based on Shemei Kohenah. So the Mishnah Berurah Paskins, it's a Mekuf Tzadikei, he quotes a Bir Hagra on Mishnayos, not a Bir Hagra on Shulchan Aruch. Bir Hagra on Mishnayos claims like this, and the Mishnah Berurah quotes, there are some Rishonim who say like that, like the Bir Hagra, that if you have 5 people in one room, 5 people in another room, they're not even mitzdarfim from a zuman. So the whole Makar, the whole Rashba, who said Ulai, just like they mitzdarfim from a zuman, they're also mitzdarfim from a minyan. The whole thing is based on the Mishnah regarding bench and mezuman. So the Mishnah Berurah Pasuk is against the whole premise. It's not even by mezuman that I'm mitzdarfim. The Mishnah, the Medubra, and the Mishnahs, you have 10 people in one room, 10 people in the other room. So you don't require that each group should have their own mezuman. They can have one mezuman together. What's the chiddush? Chiddush is that by benching we don't allow Shemei Kohenah. So if one person is going to say the benching, The other people cannot be Yotze with Shemer Kaina. They're only Yotze if it's considered one big Chabura. So then this whole din that you can't be Yotze Shemer Kaina is only made the Rabbanon. It's not a din in Torah. That's when the Mishnah Berurah explains there in Hilchos Birchas Amos. When Torah says Shemer Kaina, even by Kriya Shema, and even by Tefillah, and even by brachas in connection with eating food. But with the Rabbanon, we don't permit Shemer Kaina. So the word is, we can have the 10 in this room, 10 in the other room. They'll all be Yotze with the benching of the one person, but the other person is in the other room. How can you say that the whole Chabura offered one Birchas Hamazon? So the answer is, Min HaTorah, you do say Shemer Kaina. With the Rabbanon, you don't. So with the Rabbanon, they said, it's considered as if the 10 people, the whole Chabura offers one Birchas Hamazon. So 10 people in one room, 10 people in the other room. It's called one Chabura if they have one waiter serving on both of them. But it's not that 5 and 5 are mitzvahs. So the Mishnah Berurah reverses the whole psak. The whole psak was based on the Mishnah in Brachas. Mishnah Berurah said we don't paskin like that reading in the Mishnah. Mishnah is talking 10 and 10, not 5 and 5. Can't be a mitzvah of 10 people. 5 from over here, 5 from over there. The shaila was, can you have by a bris? Can somebody say the bracha? The grandfather lives in Chicago, and the children had a baby in Los Angeles, having a bris, and he's watching by Zoom. Can they be mechaber him? He has a cup of wine. He'll say the bracha. Shekiddush, she did me betten. The bracha kares habris. So the pashtus says he's not there. He's not participating in the simcha. He can't say kares habris. Well, the same thing you're going to have. Let's say you're going to have a sheva brachas party. So you're going to have someone who's not there. You're going to have 10 people in 10 different locations. You have 3 or 4 or 5 people, 8 people over here with the chas and kala and the parents. Then you have the minyan is all over the place. Even if you assume that the brachas by the sheva brachas is not a davar shebikdusha, but you need asarah. It should really be like asarah, like birchas hagaimos, and maybe it should have been good. But the pashta says you have to be participating in the simcha. If you're there in person, then it makes sense. You should say the birchas nisuin. Then it makes sense. You should say the bracha shekiddush, you did me better. After he said baby, that's a minyan. So that you don't need a minyan for that. So the grandfather in Chicago can give the Kriya Hashem. He can give the baby a name, even though he's not there. That's not a problem. There in Siman Kuf Tzadikei, when it says if you have the way it says in the Shulchan Aruch, if you have 5 people in one place, 5 people in the other place, that's the whole Rashba was assuming like that. It's 5 and 5. They mitzdarfim. So they quote the Rabbi, and the Mishnah Berurah there doesn't like the whole thing. Mishnah Berurah there doesn't like. See, there are different styles of learning. There's a collection of tshuvas by the Tzitz Eliezer. He was a big posek in Eretz Yisrael. So he has the old style of working out a shaila. He quotes the Shev Yankiv and the Shvus Yankiv and Knesset Yisrael Swarm that nobody even heard of today. Nobody even looks in them. That's the old style. And he doesn't quote from the last 200 years. He never quotes the Vilna Gaon or after. And if you look at Ramesh Steinbach's Chuvas, he doesn't quote anybody before the Vilna Gaon. He only quotes the Gra and Rab Chaim Volozhiner and Rab Chaim Soloveitchik and the Brisker Rab, Rab Avila Soloveitchik, only those who had a shaykhis, it's a totally different style of learning. When you have those Rabbanim who learned in the Lithuanian yeshivas, they learned by Rab Baruch Ber, they learned by Rab Shimon Shkop, they learned in the Miri yeshiva, those of them who became Dayanim and Rabbanim had a Paskan Shatna, so they write a different style of Chuvas. Like Rabbi Moshe's style, you analyze the Mekuris and the Gemara and you come up with a psak. You don't just go. The old style was that you have a din over here and a din over there. It's a hodgepodge of dinim. The new style is everything has to fit into one big system, one big pattern. Kol HaTerakula is one big mosaic. So all the dinim have to fit in with each other. So that's why the Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph is like the old style. He's just quoting the Behetiv and the Shari Tshuva. And Mishnah Berurah, the other halakim, is like the new style of learning. That's why he has so many biuri halachim when he raises issues. So even those who do follow, there was a Hungarian rabbi who wrote, he was originally anti-Zionism because of the Minkacher. They were all afraid to argue with the Minkacher Rebbe. He was the main anti-Zionist. So, and then in the middle of the war, when he was running away from the Nazis, he realized the whole thing was a mistake. And he wrote a whole sefer, Em Abanim Smecha, that we really should have been for Zionism and we would have saved so many lives. And he was a fantastic Talmid Chacham. So they printed, the family was embarrassed when the sefer Em Abanim Smecha said they didn't want to reprint it. So others reprinted it in Eretz Yisrael. They wrote it into English. It's unbelievable. And then he was the end. He was killed by the Nazis. He wrote the whole sefer, and he was running away when he was in Budapest, and he writes he didn't have any svarim there. And he quotes everything from memory. It's unbelievable. He quotes Rishonim, Achronim, and Gemaras and Midrashim all over the place. It is Rabbi Socha Teichtal, his name was. His Hungarian Talmud Chacham.
His grandson is the shliach in Berlin now. Chabad shliach in Berlin.
Chabad, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So he has Shadas Tshuva. It's very regular style, not Hungarian style at all. He has regular style Shadas Tshuvas. He has a tshuva to his brother-in-law. If people in the Israeli army, this is a shaila kol yom. If people are in a field, how close do they have to be to each other to be mitzarfim to a minyan? If you have 10 people in the same building, so the room is mitzarf them. You have 2 different rooms. So in Shulchan Aruch, the discussion, Mishnah Berurah thinks there shouldn't be mekel. It shouldn't be mitzarf 5 and 5. You have to have all the 10 people in the same room. So what if they're on a field? How close do they have to be? So in his tshuva, he quotes the dinim from Simon Kuf Tzadikei by Benjamin Zuman, and he says, "B'shas v'chak, we rely on this Rashba." So there, the Shulchan Aruch quotes Rabbeinu Yoina. It only been mitzar 5 people and 5 people from 2 different rooms, provided that there's no street mapsik in between. But if you have a shvil harabim or a shvil hayochad in between, that's mapsik. Where do you have that din? That's mapsik for hafrashas peya. That's mapsik for dinim. They have to do, is it 1 field or is it 2 fields? If it's 1 field, you only have to be mafresh 1 pay. If they're 2 different fields, you have to be mafresh separate pay in this field, separate pay in that field. So if you have 1 big field, but you have a highway going through the middle, so the highway Shvil Harabim, even Shvil HaYochid, is mafsik. So this is a chiddush with the Rabbeinu Yoina. Shulchan Aruch quotes it, Yesh Misha Omer. So they all say, the Mechaber has a policy, if he only found it in 1 rishon, he'll call it Yesh Misha Omer. It didn't necessarily mean that it's only a minority opinion, even if everybody agrees, he'll call it Yesh Misha Omer. So that's what they say. We really probably assume like that, but no one else said it. The only one who said it was the Rabbeinu Yoina. I find it very questionable. There you're talking about mitzar fields. 1 field is it 1 field? Are there 2 fields? Or safik tema b'shus hayachid, b'shus harabim. Okay, so if you're talking about being mitzar 2 different fields, so then if you have a highway, mapsik in between, or shvil hayachid, shvil harabim is 16 amos wide, shvil hayachid is less than 16 amos wide. So if you have a pathway, mapsik in between, then it's a separate field. But if you're talking about bench and mezuman or the dovish b'kedusha davening, so why should you're talking about people? You're not talking about karka. So why should a shvil harabim be mapsik in between? So that's a shaila now. Now that the government is allowing people to make minyanim if they daven outside, if they don't go into the buildings in Muncie and other places, that's what they claim that the government allowed it. It's questionable whether the government did allow it or not. So the question is, can you be mitzaref if you have 9 people on one side of the street, 9 people on the other side of the street? Everybody's outside. They're not in their porches. They're not in a different rishus hayachid. They're all outside, but there's a street, there's mapsik in between. So many are makpid. The whole din that you can mitzaref 5 and 5 is based on Benjamin Zuman. Yeah, but that's 5 and 5 in 2 different rooms. Here, 5 and 5, they're all outside. They're not in different rooms. So, but since the Rabbeinu Yoina was quoted in Shulchan Aruch that if you have a shvil harabim mapsik in between, so you cannot be mitzaref the people together. So that's questionable. Do you need that all the 10 should be on one side of the street, or you can be mitzaref 5 from one side of the street, 5 from the other side of the street? Then it's another question. Even if you hold like that, Rabbeinu Yoina, maybe that's only by Benjamin Zuman, because Benjamin Zuman, the Gemara's lashon is shlosh shtachlo ka'achas. The 3 people have to have eaten together. If some are eating fleshik, some are eating milchik, so the dinim Shulchan Aruch, how are you mitzaref to zimun? Because it has to be shlosh shachlu ka'achas. When is it? Which way is it called ka'achas? But maybe by davening, maybe there's no din that you need ka'achas. True, there has to be a tziruf, and if one of them is in cherem or nidu, you cannot be mitzarefim to the minyan. For Mikra and Megillah, yes. Gimel, probably yes. But for Minyan, not. You need a tziruf. Maybe it's not the same tziruf that's needed by Benjamin Zuman. Maybe by Benjamin Zuman you need more. The Chazon Ish, I'll close with this. Chazon Ish has a short essay at the end of the first parak in Eruvin. The Mishnah talks about some dinim that have to do with the Jewish army, the Israeli army. Arba dvarim patra b'machna, Yud Zayin Amid Aleph. So the Chazon Ish has a few important comments on the Jewish army. He wrote this before Hakamas HaMedina, and he writes, if you do have a Medina, you don't have a Medina, it's only called, if it's a Jewish battalion in the British army, that's not called Machne Yisrael. If a Jewish army sponsored by the Jewish government in Eretz Yisrael, then it has the dinim of Machne Yisrael. So he discusses over there, if you have soldiers on the field, how close do they have to be to each other that they should be mitzdarfim to Asarah. So he has a chiddush within Shivim Amma B'Shirayim. Shivim Amma B'Shirayim is a din in Mishnayos and Ketzer Ba'abrim, in the middle of the Erevin. If you have a layout of a city and you have houses going north, 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 one house, another house, so the city limits keep on extending, but you only extend the concept of an ear, if the houses are within Shivim Amma to each other. If it's more than Shivim Amma B'Shirayim, then it's not mitzdarf. I was also surprised why the Chazon Ish thinks that applies to mitzdarf people over here. You have 10 people and 71 ammas away from each other. They're not within 70 and 2/3 of an amma. I'm surprised that he thinks that tziruf, that sheer tziruf, is relevant for a minyan. I thought that's only for buildings. This is some of the issues involved in the different situations. Oh, I didn't. I left out some of the other cases. Okay, some other time. Good.
I have three questions. Based on the whole share. Rabbi said the ksuba. Why don't we change the reading of the ksuba to English? Is there something about it having to be in Aramaic, or can we change it to English?
We can change the text of the ksuba. Also, should be in English. Yeah, maybe it should.
So why don't we actually do that? Because it doesn't make more sense people to understand what's being said and actually feel that that it means something, as opposed to just some hieroglyphics that are being said by the Chabad.
I think that people would be stunned if they find out what it says in the ksuba. It just says about money. Just says a monetary agreement. Then in case he divorces her, in case he dies, she's entitled to collect the...
So if someone wants to make it in English, there's nothing wrong with making it in English?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I wrote an English translation of the Ksuba years ago, and I think he used to read it. I think he used to read it in public.
Makes sense. The second thing was Berachas Hamazon, right? Rabbi said that if a person wants to be Yotze Berachas Hamazon with other people, he can be. They used to be Yotze other people with it. Was that just for the first bracha, second bracha? Because Berachas Hamazon, they added on to Berachas Hamazon, right? Berachas Hamazon was originally like one piece, and then they added one king added on another one, another king added on another piece. Or is that what is Berachas Hamazon for us today that always was, and what parts are add-ons?
The Gemara says when the mon came down in the midbar and they made bread, said Moshe Rabbeinu composed the first bracha Hazanas Hakol. They didn't have to thank the Rabbanu Shalom over the fact that he gave us Eretz Yisrael because he had delivered. After Yeshua ben Nun conquered Eretz Yisrael, so that the din requires you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu over the fact that he actually gave us Eretz Yisrael. Yeshua ben Nun had to compose the second bracha. Then Al Ha'aretz HaTayva. The word HaTayva has a connotation of Yerushalayim. Ha'ar HaTayv HaZev HaLavanan. So the two parts to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim Al Pidin is the official capital of Eretz Yisrael, the political capital of Eretz Yisrael Al Pidin, even before Mr. Trump declared that the American government recognizes it. And number two, Yerushalayim Al Pidin is the Makam of the Beis HaMikdash. So when David HaMelech established Yerushalayim as the capital, first he lived in Hebron for 7 years, and then he moved to Yerushalayim for 33 years. When he established Yerushalayim as the capital, the din deraisa said in, you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us Yerushalayim as the capital. But then when Shlomo HaMelech built the first Beis HaMikdash, then the din deraisa said in, you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the fact that he gave us Yerushalayim as the Makam HaMikdash. After the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so then we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have Rachmanis. It could be the Rachim Noah, it could be that that's only midrabanan today. When you have Eretz Yisrael, then we thank you. No, we thank you for giving us Eretz Yisrael. So when you have control of Eretz Yisrael, then you have to thank the Rabbanan Shalom. If Eretz Yisrael is taken away, could be that no delacha, the second bracha is only the Rabbanan. Hatayv Ameitiv, the accepted opinion is Hatayv Ameitiv is only the Rabbanan. That was in the days of the Tanaim, the Hatayv Ameitiv. And then the Harachmans, after the Olam Chasreinu, that's a minig that was instituted in the days of the Gaonim. Some Rishonim write on Soitam, Perek El and Amorim, that the bracha for the Balabayas, that's a din min haTorah, because it says, Es Hashem Elokecha. So the Gemara usually says Es the rabbi something. So here the Gemara doesn't discuss it, but some of the Bali Atesa suggest this on Soita Perikel in the morning. Es Hashem Lakech Es LeRabbis Balabais. That's why Rabbi Elvelah Soloveitchik had the practice. He felt that this is his greatest chiddush that he came up with in his whole lifetime, his most important chiddush, that when you finish Le'olam Hayich Hasreinu, you should say the bracha for the Balabais right away before you say the other Harachmans. Harachman Baruchas Balabais Hazeh should be recited before the other Harachmans because it's really an integral part of the Birchas Hamas, and some hold Min HaTorah.
And the final question is, where did this 10 people start, the basic Knesset start? Who invented the idea of I need 10 people for Davar Shabbat I need the concept of basic Knesset? Where did this begin? What was behind all of it? Right.
The din of 10, Moshe Feinstein has one shuvah where he suggests that the din of 10, based on the pasuk, meaning Dashta B'Sech B'nai Yisrael, a din Min HaTorah, that's only for the din of Yehareg Val Yavar. If the guy wants to cause me to violate my religion, the guy tells me lahachas I should cook food for him on Shabbos, otherwise he's going to kill me. So the din is I cook the food that he shouldn't kill me. Pikuach nefesh is derech chilul Shabbos. But if he makes me cook the food in the presence of 10 people, 10 Jewish people, then the din is befarhesia, the din is Yehareg Val Yavar. Or b'shas hashmad, even if it's betzina, it'll become a fursum, so it's considered like befarhesia. So Moshe Feinstein thinks that was the original din derais. Then the Chachamim patterned the rest midirabbanan after the din derais. Moshe thinks that the requirement for a minyan to recite Davar Shabbat, that's only midirabbanan. That's why we have leniencies that if you have 10 people who are bar mitzvah and one who's a katan before bar mitzvahs, so many would be lenient. It's a whole discussion in Tosfos and Perek Shlosha Shachlu and Brachas, and maybe one katan can be mitzvah to a minyan. There's even an opinion that's not quoted in the Shulchan Aruch that one woman can be mitzvah to a minyan, just like one cut may be one woman, but the Shulchan Aruch didn't even quote that opinion. Mishnah Berurah talks about it. How come the Shulchan Aruch didn't even quote it? So Moshe suggests in one of his chuvas that these leniencies, that one cotton can be mitzvah to minyan, that's only because the whole need for Asarah, for Davar Shabbat Kedusha, is only midirabbanan. But for Yehareg Val Yavar, we wouldn't say like that. We would say you really need 10 people who are after bar mitzvah. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Day. Very good.
Rabbi, is a balcony considered part of the room?
Is the balcony considered?
For the shul, we discussed during the shul. So if somebody goes in would that be considered or not part of the?
I think it's considered a separate room. It's a separate floor, a separate room. I think so.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
They're allowed to answer Kaddish Kedusha. If you have 10 people in the shul, then the people in the other outside can also answer Kaddish Kedusha and Baruch Hu. But if you have 9 people in the shul, 9 people in the balcony, that's like 9 people on this side of the mechitza, 9 people on the other side. If the mechitza is attached to the floor, then it's chelik v'shus. Then the pashtus is they're not mitzvah from yachad.
No, but some balconies come out into the shul, so that would be like
it's a different floor. I think it's a different room. I think so.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi, can
I
ask a quick question?
Sure.
It seems apparent. I don't exactly know how the laws are working, but it seems possible. Obviously, with the safety work, everyone takes care of their safety. That New York would allow a minyan tomorrow, starting Thursday. So, is it preferable to daven? Or is it allowed to daven b'yechidus today on Wednesday because that's the first opportunity? Or should we wait until 12:01 to daven Marv with a minyan? Or would that be like similar to doing the first mitzvah as soon as possible, or a bigger?
I mean, at 12:01, they may permit us to daven with a minyan.
So I don't know what Thursday means.
Okay, we got to find out. Okay. Is it preferable to daven, to do a mitzvah? I have an opportunity to do a mitzvah now. I can do the mitzvah later with a bigger crowd. So we usually assume, based on the Gemara, that mitzvah it's preferable to do the mitzvah earlier Even though if you wait to do it later, you have a bigger crowd. It's better to do the mitzvah earlier. That's what they all show from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. That they used to blow shofar in the middle of Chazar Hashatz of Shachris on Rosh Hashanah. They said Malchus Lein shofar is by Shachris, and they blew shofar in the middle of Chazar Hashatz by Shachris, even though the shul was not as crowded as Shachris as it's going to be by Musaf. Musaf, there was a much bigger crowd. But still, mitzvah, to do the mitzvah earlier takes precedence. That's what all the poskim complain, that the minig usually is when you have a Pidyon HaBen, so you do it late in the afternoon, before the Shkia. Why do you do it so late? Because people are not going to show up. Who are bris, they will come, and for some reason or another, Pidyon HaBen, they won't come, so it'll be half empty. But if you do the Pidyon HaBen after work, in the evening, late, before the Shkia, so then more people will show up. So all the poskim say, more correct is to do the Pidyon HaBen earlier, even though there'll be a smaller group. So the Pashta says, if you have an opportunity to daven Ma'ariv at the normal time, right after Tzeiser Kochavim, and then you're going to have a minyan later at 12:01, I would think it's better to daven earlier without the minyan.
And then what about Mashiv Haruach? Don't we postpone that until Musaf because we don't want the tzibur to get confused? We make the announcement by Musaf.
I don't think it's not to be confused, to change the description of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is saying Morid Atol, you say Mashiv Haruach, instead of saying Mashiv Haruach, you say Morid Atol. So if you give a different description, that's to Ari Hashem, give a different description of the Rebbeinu Shalom, then it sounds like it's a different religion, it's a different God. So if you have the whole tzibur, you need the rishus of the tzibur to change. In order to say V'sein Talamota, you don't need that the tzibur already started saying V'sein Talamota. If I'm davening before the tzibur, on that day that you start saying V'sein Talamota, I don't have to wait for the tzibur. But to say Mashiv Haruach, to change the description of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence, for that you need the rishus of the tzibur. So that's why you have to wait. So the shul is going to be more crowded by Musaf. So that's the Mishnah says. I remember when we were touring in Spain, so we daven on Shabbos in Barcelona in a shul. So the rabbi told me before davening, we came with a whole group of 35 people. So the rabbi told us in advance, Shachris, they're going to have Chazar Hashatz because it's a small oilam. By the time it comes to Musaf, it's going to be, the whole shul is going to be crowded. So they follow the takana of the Rambam not to do Chazar Hashatz. Because in the churches, there's decorum. The Rambam complains. In the mosques, there was decorum. And the shuls, people were talking, doing Chazar Hashatz. So the Rambam did away with Chazar Hashatz. So, and he said, they did a Heiche Kedusha. Everybody started Musaf together. They said Kedusha and Shoin. Because you're going to have Chazar Hashatz. It's going to be a Chil Hashem. The Rambam says everyone's going to be talking. Middle of Chazar Hashatz.
There's a conference call that they want you on, and you're answering all these things.
Okay, I have to stop now. Everyone should have a good day.
Thank you, Abby.
Good.